They called it madness, a sickness of the soul. For every vision that danced behind my eyes, they'd find a diagnosis. For every truth that spilled from my lips, they'd slap on a label. Outcast, loner, dreamer, strange. I walked through my own hometown like a ghost, with whispers following me like a shadow. They saw something broken, a puzzle with missing pieces. But they never understood. The pieces weren't missing. They were just from a different puzzle entirely, a divine one. Have you ever felt that? That deep, unshakable sense that you're tuned to a frequency no one else can hear? Have you ever carried gifts that feel more like burdens? A light inside you that other people just mistake for madness? If you have, then you know the ache of being misunderstood. Today, we're not just talking about the pain of being an outcast. We're talking about that moment when the prophecy about the outcast starts to come true. We're talking about you. My world was small, its borders drawn by suspicious looks and quiet dismissals from people I'd known my whole life. I lived in a town where conformity was everything, a place where the nail that sticks up gets hammered, down not out of meanness, but out of a deep, collective fear. Fear of the unknown. And I was the unknown. I saw patterns in the chaos, felt the emotional currents running under conversations, and I just knew things without knowing how. This wasn't a source of pride. It was profoundly lonely. The path of being gifted, of being chosen for something unique, is so often a solitary one. You learn to hide your light, to dim your own brilliance, just to feel like you belong, even for a fleeting moment. That kind of isolation can lead to a quiet sorrow, a sadness carried in the hearts of those who see the world in a different color. My life was proof of this. At the market, I'd feel a sudden, sharp pang of a stranger's grief and have to turn away, my own eyes filling with tears they couldn't understand. I'd warn a neighbor not to plant his crops in the north field, sensing a blight was coming, and he'd just pat my shoulder with a sad smile, brushing it off as one of my feelings. When the blight came, he never made the connection. It was just bad luck. Everything was just bad luck, or a coincidence. My insights were never proof of a gift, only more proof of my strangeness. This is the fire that forges the chosen one. It's a path walked by the greatest souls in history and scripture. Think of Joseph. He was just a boy whose divine dreams weren't celebrated. They were met with brutal scorn from his own brothers. They saw his visions as arrogance. So they threw him in a pit and sold him into slavery, trying to kill the very dreams God had planted in his soul. They wanted to silence the prophecy, but in doing so, they just set in motion the very events that would make it come true. My town didn't throw me in a pit, but every day, their disbelief felt like another shovel of dirt on a spirit just trying to breathe. They were trying to bury a seed they didn't realize was divinely planted. The shift didn't come with a clap of thunder or a voice from the heavens. It came on a Tuesday, a boring, grey, totally unremarkable Tuesday. Mrs. Gable's son, a boy about 8 years old, had lost his locket, a precious keepsake from his late grandmother. The whole neighborhood had been searching for hours, getting more frantic as the sun started to dip low. I watched from my window, feeling the boy's sharp, piercing sadness like a thorn in my own heart. I wanted to help, but what was I going to do? Offer up another one of my feelings and get more of those pitying looks? I closed my eyes, letting the boy's grief wash over me, and in the darkness behind my eyelids, I saw it. It wasn't a thought or a guess. It was a clear, calm picture, the locket, glinting silver, caught on the thorny branch of a wild rose bush behind the old well, a place no one had even thought to look. It was so vivid, so real, I could almost feel the cool metal in my hand. My heart started hammering. This was different, stronger. This wasn't some vague feeling. This was a map. For a long moment, I did nothing. I just let the fear wash over me. Don't, a voice in my head pleaded. Just stay here. It's safer here. The fear of ridicule, of being seen as even more unhinged, was a physical weight. It's that moment of hesitation on the edge of your own destiny when you're terrified of the power you're being asked to step into. Do I believe this? Am I actually losing my mind? But then I felt the boy's sorrow again, a wave of pure, innocent heartbreak. And in that instant, his pain became more real to me than my fear. I stood up, my legs trembling, and walked out my door. I didn't say a word to anyone. I just walked, straight and true, toward the old well at the edge of the woods. The search party barely noticed me, just another shadow moving around the edges. I pushed through the overgrown brush, my heart screaming at me to turn back. And there it was, exactly as I had seen it. A silver locket tangled in the thorns of a rose bush, catching the last rays of the dying sun. I didn't shout or call for attention. I just gently untangled the locket and walked over to the boy, who was sitting on the stone well, his small shoulders shaking. I knelt in front of him and opened my hand. His eyes widened, first in disbelief, and then with a light of pure joy that felt like the sun breaking through the clouds. He didn't ask how. He didn't care. He just grabbed the locket, clutched it to his chest, and threw his arms around my neck. "Thank you," he whispered. "That hug, that was everything." It wasn't some wise old sage giving me a secret. It was the raw, honest gratitude of a child. It was the external validation that shattered my internal doubt. In his eyes, I wasn't the town outcast. I was the person who found what was lost. His mother, Mrs. Gable, rushed over, her face a mix of confusion and relief. "Where did you find it?" she asked, her eyes searching mine, not with suspicion, but with genuine wonder. I just said I had a feeling he needed it back. That night, for the first time, the silence in my house wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. I had crossed a line. The gift wasn't a curse. It was a tool, a sacred calling. I made a conscious choice, a deal with myself and with the God who put me on this strange and wondrous path. I would no longer run from it. I would listen. I would learn. I would walk toward the whispers of my soul, no matter where they led. I decided to stop seeing myself through the town's eyes and start seeing myself through God's eyes. It reminds me of David, who was overlooked by his own father when the prophet Samuel came to anoint a king. While his strong, handsome brothers were paraded out, David was forgotten, left in the fields with the sheep. But God doesn't see the way people see. He told Samuel, "The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." In that moment, by the well, I felt like God was looking right at my heart, past all the labels and the whispers, and had found me worthy. But embracing who I was didn't suddenly make my life easy. In a lot of ways, it actually made things harder. Every time I used my gift, it was like a test, and it started sorting the town into two camps, those who believed and those who didn't. Single quotes. It started with small things. I'd guide a farmer to a hidden spring on his dried up land. I'd have a vision of a loose floorboard in the church and warn the pastor right before a heavy organ was moved over it. My allies were few, but their belief was a healing balm. Mrs. Gable became a quiet defender. The farmer, whose land now had water, would leave a basket of vegetables on my doorstep. The pastor would give me a knowing nod on Sundays. They were my allies, the ones who had seen the results and stopped questioning the reason. But for every ally, there were a dozen enemies. My growing reputation didn't quiet the whispers. It made them louder. The town's skepticism curdled into something darker, more hostile. They couldn't deny what was happening, so they attacked the source. Coincidence became conspiracy. Helpfulness became manipulation. The whispers of madness were replaced with shouts of witchcraft or deceit. They didn't see me as a channel for grace, but as some kind of trickster. Their fear had just found a new name. I was more isolated than ever, but this time, the loneliness felt different. It was the loneliness of a watchman on the wall, not a prisoner in a cell. I was guarding something sacred. The rejection still stung, but now it was mixed with a sense of purpose. I thought of what they said about Jesus in his own hometown. A prophet is not without honor except in his own town. His own people, the ones who watched him grow up, couldn't see the divine because the familiar was in the way. They were offended that a carpenter's son could speak with the authority of God. I was just the town outcast, and my gifts were an offense to their neat, predictable world. I finally understood. Their rejection wasn't about my worth, it was a reflection of their own blindness. Before we get to the climax of this story, I want you to pause with me for a second. If any of this is stirring something in your own heart, if you have ever felt that sting of being misunderstood for the very gifts that make you who you are, just take a moment, breathe deeply. Acknowledge the road you're on, with all its private struggles and silent victories. Then, go to the comments below and share one single word that describes your unique gift. Is it intuition, empathy, creativity, vision? Let's fill that space with the light of our collective callings. And finally, if you feel a connection to this, subscribe and join our community. You don't have to walk this road alone. Let's be allies for one another. The real test came with the first snow of winter. A brutal, sudden storm buried the valley, snapping the lines to the outside world. It was beautiful and terrible all at once, but the beauty turned to pure terror when the news spread. The old bridge, the only way out of the southern hollow, had collapsed. The family, the Millers, was trapped on the other side. One of their kids was gravely ill, her fever spiking, and they'd been trying to get to the hospital. Panic ripped through the town. The men gathered, their faces grim. The hollow was treacherous, surrounded by steep hills. Trying to reach them on foot in this blizzard was suicide. There was no way through. All the town's logic and strength meant nothing. They were completely helpless. As I stood on the edge of the crowd, the mother's frantic, silent prayer cut right through the storm's howl and into my soul. I closed my eyes and the world of wind and snow just vanished. I saw a path, an old, forgotten logger's trail, overgrown and erased from every map. It was dangerous, winding perilously close to a ravine, but it was there, and I saw something else, a spot where the ravine was shallow, where a giant oak had fallen years ago, its trunk forming a hidden, snow-covered bridge. It was the only way. I stepped forward. The crowd parted, their faces a mix of desperation and distrust. I spoke to the town elder, my voice clear and steady. "There is a way," I said. "The old logger's path on the western ridge. It leads to a fallen oak. That's how you'll cross." He stared at me. "That path's been gone for 50 years. He spat. "That's a fool's errand. You'll get them all killed." The crowd murmured in agreement. It was madness. But then a voice cut through the noise. It was Mrs. Gable. "Her feelings found my son's locket," she said, her voice shaking but firm. Then the farmer spoke up. "Her feelings found my spring." One by one, my small group of allies spoke their truth, forming a fragile shield of credibility around me. "It was just enough." With a heavy sigh, the elder agreed to let a small rescue party try, with me as their guide. Section 6, The Reward. Vindication and new identity. The journey was a nightmare. The wind tore at us, the snow was waist deep. The men wanted to turn back more than once, their belief fading with every step, but I held the vision of the path in my mind like a steady, burning light. "This way," I'd say, pointing to what looked like nothing but an impenetrable wall of trees. "Trust me." And they did. They found the overgrown path. They followed it along the ridge. And then, through the swirling snow, they saw it. The fallen oak, a massive, solid bridge across. The ravine, exactly where I said it would be. A collective gasp went through the men. It was a moment of stunning, undeniable truth. They crossed and reached the Miller family just in time, carrying the sick child back across the oak bridge and into the warmth and safety of the town. And just like that, the prophecy was fulfilled. Not with a big, boastful announcement, but in the quiet, steady footsteps of a rescued child. When we returned, the town was silent. The whispers were gone. The suspicious glances were replaced with looks of awe, even reverence. I was no longer the town outcast. I was the one who saw a path where there was no path. My madness was now a miracle. My strangeness was now a gift. The heavy coat of misunderstanding had finally been lifted, and for the first time, I felt the warmth of their acceptance. I was finally seen, not as the person they thought I was, but as the person God created me to be. Conclusion: the new beginning. My life in the town changed after that day. But more importantly, I had changed. The real reward wasn't the town's acceptance, as nice as that was. The true reward was the quiet certainty that now lived in my own heart. I finally understood my purpose. It wasn't to be understood by everyone, but to simply serve with the gifts I was given. Your journey might look different. Your gifts might not be visions, but an empathy that can heal a broken heart. Your prophecy might not be saving a life, but creating art that awakens a soul. So please, don't hate your path just because it's lonely. Don't mistake all the confusion and pain for a curse. It's not. It's a catalyst. Remember Jacob, who wrestled with God all through the night. The blessing was in the struggle itself. It was in the wrestling that he was transformed and given a new name. If you feel like you are wrestling with your purpose, with your faith, with how the world sees you, know that you are in a sacred place. That struggle is shaping you, preparing you, and renaming you for the destiny that's waiting. This story isn't just about some town outcast. It's the story of every soul that has ever dared to be different, to follow the sacred calling written on their heart. Your gifts are not a mistake. Your unique path is not a punishment. It is a holy invitation. Embrace it, trust it, and watch as the very things the world misunderstood become the source of its salvation. You are not an outcast. You are a prophecy waiting to be fulfilled.